Cool. Thank you all so much for coming. I see so many familiar faces. I feel like we've been through this a couple times, which is exciting, and it's always so energizing for us to hear from you and figure out, okay, this is where we need to keep pushing. For those who don't know me, my name's Ken. I've been at Epic almost 6 years now, working with creators for well over half of that, and I do product stuff on Fortnite, on our social systems, Discover, and a few other things as well. And I work really closely with Joey.
Hello, I'm Joey. So it's been great to meet a bunch of you. I'm a product director on the Discover team specifically. And so I started about a year and a half ago. And so I've been learning a lot from Kent as we go. But yeah, excited to have this conversation today.
And I saw that Tom Jank tweeted 4 minutes ago that, it's kicking off. So we'll see. Apparently there's a lot of excitement, so we'll see what happens. Cool. Well, let's get into it. We've had a couple bites of this, and I think this ideally is the most condensed version of trying to crystallize what success in Discover is all about. And again, this is something we're continually iterating on, but I hope it's something that can be really clarifying as you think about the games you make and how you approach updating and continuing to iterate on those games. And so today, we're going to talk about how Discover works, we're going to talk about how new content testing works, and then we're going to walk through the Discover evolution, which is a fancy word for a bunch of features we're trying to deliver to improve Discover towards the end of this year. So first, how does Discover work? Essentially, there are 3 core types of metrics we really care about when we're looking at your content. We're looking at the attraction of your content. How well does your island convert impressions into sustained engagement? Note that second half of the sentence, sustained engagement. Engagement itself, meaning if you get a player, is this a player that's sticking around? Are they bringing their friends? Are they coming back tomorrow? And finally, and this is kind of the newest version or newest term for this, but it's one we're really excited about, which is satisfaction. How satisfied are players after they have played your island? Do they refer it? Do they recommend it to their friends? Is it something that they're basically bringing their friends to? So to start with attraction, which is, and for all these slides, it's going to be the same format. Left side is hey, this is how we kind of think about it. And the right side are best practices. And then what I think everyone's excited about, which is key new features that'll help enable this in the future. And so in terms of attraction, this is all about we're giving content impressions. How are you turning that into sustained engagement? Players that are really, enjoying your game and are attached to your game. We cut this in a bunch of ways, and ideally more in the future, but right now we care a lot about looking about which games new players, people brand new to Fortnite, are seeking out, returning users, people who took a break from Fortnite then came back, and retained users are going into. So right now in best practices, this shouldn't be shocking for anyone, but the creator marketing playbook just came out. There's a lot of great stuff in that, a lot of great interviews in that, in terms of how do we learn from the best practices the community is learning. I saw It's Jackie's interview in that this morning. It was really cool to see. Creator analytics as well are a huge part of this. So you can understand the impressions you're receiving, the clicks you're receiving, and the types of player you are attracting to your island. But we know there's a lot more features we want to deliver to give you this opportunity, and that's where these big things for this year come in and the coming year. First, personalized Discover, which is an ongoing process, right? This is something that each additional week and month, we are trying to make those models better to better reflect players and audiences. So if I'm a player who loves roleplay and Lego, we're actually serving that content to you versus, here's another XYZ map. Favorite a creator, which is coming later this year, which is going to really allow you both from web and in-game to kind of start developing that relationship with your audience. So when you publish a new game, you can actually have a place to show them, hey, there's this new thing I publish. A new and returning user interest flow, which is something we're really excited about. Essentially, we're trying to get this in this year. I hope it lands. Essentially, when I arrive in Fortnite as someone who's never played Fortnite before, we actually ask you, what are you interested in? Why did you come here? Are you here for Battle Royale? Are you here for Lego? Are you here for Fall Guys Team of MT? Are you here for driving, roleplay, et cetera, et cetera? And Joey's going to talk about this a bit later. And then finally, I'll go through these next ones a little quicker. We're looking to make it ever easier for you to directly link to your islands, whether a user is on your phone or on the PC or on any type of application, in terms of being able to send people to a particular island within Fortnite. We're trying to perpetually make the Fortnite client itself thinner, so it's a quicker download, it's easier, we're downloading what you need, when you need it, and expect some big updates on that next year. And then finally, we're trying to squeeze this in for the start of next year, the ability to A/B test thumbnails. So you can actually understand, which thumbnails are working best for your audience and which ones are actually allowing you to create the sustained audience with your content.
The only thing I'll add really quickly is this is an ongoing conversation. We're always listening. So if there's things on here that you're like, this is the most important thing, you guys are totally missing this, definitely reach out, contact folks from different creator relations teams. We want to hear from you. This is our best stab at what we think the top priority things are. But you guys are really in the weeds and you know it better than we do. And so as much as you can, let's make this a conversation and let us know what we're missing if there is something that you think we need to do.
And the good news, this is one of 3 slides. So there's 2 more where there's new features coming, which is great. There's also a bunch of other stuff that's not on here. This was the ones that really felt, above the fold, so to speak. Next one, which I think most folks should be familiar with, is engagement. So you got a player to your island. Are they sticking around? Are they coming back tomorrow? Are they bringing their friends? And are they social within the island? Again, this is where we've been trying to push into creator analytics this year. I think in particular, drop off in terms of where players leave your game is incredibly powerful here for you to understand. I play a ton of UEFN, and there's often a game-breaking bug that could appear in minute 9 and giving you a metric. It's hey, something's happening in minute 9 to 10. I think that's the type of analytic we want to provide ever more of, so you can really understand where are you losing players? Where are they saying, okay, I'm no longer interested in this? As well, this is again a big thing we're trying to push on this year. It's key to iterate on your content. Fortnite itself has had I don't know how many updates at this point, but once a game comes out, ensuring you're taking that audience feedback, you're iterating on it, you're looking at your data, and you're figuring out, okay, what are the updates I need to make to this game to make it more compelling for my audience? And when we think about key new features, I didn't write the whole list because there's so much stuff. If you consider any feature that allows you to make better content, something that helps you drive engagement, that's actually basically every feature we're building. But in particular, favorite a creator, we think is going to be really important for this retention story. So your players have a relationship with you. When you push a big update to your game, you'll be able to broadcast it to your players. And then we think text chat is just going to really allow games to be more social, more engaging, and it's going to be a real game changer later this year, as well as, again, all of our tools features, which are in this area. Anything you'd add, Joey?
No, we've heard Scene Graph come up a lot, so I know a lot of folks are excited for what that's going to unlock. All the tools, I think, go a really long way in just differentiating the types of engaging content you can make. So,
and more than engagement, we want players who are satisfied as well, where they leave your game and you delivered on the promise. This is what the game was about. I'm satisfied. I enjoyed it. I had fun. And right now, we kind of look at satisfaction in 2 ways, and we're looking at, again, for ever more ways. One is post-match, where random sample surveys that pop up in-game asking players if they had fun in your experience, whether it was too hard, what's the quality of the experience, is one thing we pay a lot of attention to here, as well as endorsements. Is this a piece of content I'm adding to my favorites? Is this a piece of content I'm recommending to my friends? And again, for us, this has been a new one this year, but it's one when we've always had favorites kind of sloshing around. But it's one we're really excited about in terms of ensuring that some of our most boundary pushing and successful content that's really pushing in the direction that we're all just so excited for the platform to go can be rewarded in terms of a numerical sense, in terms of we can actually understand how satisfying your island is. And again, this is where, similar to engagement, iteration is so key. Continually pushing updates. I saw a Twitter thread this morning from one of you all, I forget which, where it's the moment you're playtesting your game and you're like, wait, I want to keep playtesting. This is really fun. That might be a sign you're on to something satisfying. And again, the other one I'm going to flag here, because I think it's really important, is are you actually delivering on the fantasy of your thumbnail, where your thumbnail's a promise to your players. This is what I'm going to try to deliver. And as we know, there's been a lot of back and forth with thumbnails. There's always a hot topic in the community, appropriately so. But what we see with games that are not delivering on that thumbnail is they often struggle to actually hit this satisfaction score, because you're telling players one thing and you're giving them something else, and that's not good for anybody. In particular, we're super stoked that the Creator Portal team and analytics is going to be able to deliver these metrics later this year, so you can understand, you push a new update, how does my satisfaction score change, both in terms of overall satisfaction, did you have fun, and then as well as the difficulty of your game. Was it too hard, too easy, somewhere in between? And again, much like engagement, all of the great tool stuff that's coming down the pipe, we think is going to allow you to build more innovative, engaging, and satisfying content, which is why it kind of keeps coming up here. The other topic, just to kind of touch on, is new content testing. As the moderation talk and other talks go into, we receive an amazing amount of games, and that's really exciting. In a given week, we currently, and I need to start by saying, what the heck is a test? Because that's a made-up word. A test, as our currently, created system, is giving your islands 50,000 impressions within a short time window. And we don't really care about giving impressions for the sake of giving impressions. We care about getting your game full lobbies and high enough CCU where we can get a good taste of the data and understand whether this game is like uniquely compelling, satisfying, attractive, whatever it may be. And we've been working as well on some matchmaking improvements in the last kind of couple months and more coming to basically how can we even more efficiently allocate those impressions and concurrent users into games. I don't know if you want to add anything there.
No, I mean, I think, I think like we say 50,000. I think that doesn't mean that you only get 50,000 impressions and no more. It's more like we aim to try to get as many maps as we can. That like burst of impressions, we try to get you to like a high CCU so that we can better understand kind of what your game is doing. But definitely like, and then Discover like looks at the results from that and then sort of adjusts and says, okay, like it's doing well within these metrics. Here's how it sort of starts to display in the other rows.
Yep. And so in a given week, we currently test 4,000 new and updated games across all of our rows. And we are constantly looking for ways to scale this to keep up with the amazing amount of content coming in. The one we are most excited for I was hoping we'd have by this time, it's not ready yet, and we don't want to rush it, is personalized testing. Meaning, if I make a tycoon, we should test that with players who love tycoons. And if I make an awesome search and destroy, let me show that to some people who look like they like Counter-Strike and making sure we're actually matching these audience segments so niches of play can truly form, which we've seen like, green shoots all this year. But we think until we are able to test content, particularly with that audience that we think is going to resonate with it, it's going to be, it's not as perfect as we know it can be. And so that's our big push here.
Yeah, the other thing I'll add is that, we try to test islands multiple times, especially if creators are updating their islands. So it's not like, oh, I get one try and it didn't work or whatever. And now I'm, might as well start over, go to something else. Like I really, really want to underline that like updating your island and continuing to invest will give you more tries at getting tested. And that Discover tries to sort of have like a fairly short memory, all things considered, where, if a few weeks ago you were tested and for whatever reason you had a bug and your island engagement doesn't look so great, and then you come back 2 weeks later and you fix the bug, Discover doesn't look at your metrics from 2 weeks ago. It really tries to focus on what's happening right now when people engage with this island today. Where is it? Like, where are they going?
Yeah, like kind of short memory. And as we spoke about at GDC, when we think about prioritizing what islands get testing, we're looking at the content within your map, the devices within your map, the verse code you've written, and the game you've created in terms of how our editor sees it. Again, that's an art and not a science. It's something as well we're trying to get more and more sharp on. I'm going to pass it over to Joey now, who's going to talk about some of the new features coming.
Cool. So the first one we're going to talk about, and one that we've sort of already talked about, and some of the pieces have already come out, is creator pages. What goes into creator pages? The first thing is that players are going to be able to favorite a creator in client and in web. We think having it on web is awesome just because it allows you to sort of like leverage your socials, send it to players, and really start building that following, building that relationship with your audience, and then having that reflected back to them in game. Favorited creators, the new islands from those creators, and updated islands are all going to show up in the player's library. And then we're also going to have multiple different rows in Discover to surface that same content. So as the player is kind of scrolling through Discover, they actually get a little bit of control over, oh, this is the type of content that I want to see. And so you'll be able to see new and updated islands, as well as we're working on a version of trying to like integrate creator picks so that you can kind of also build up the other creators that you think are doing awesome things within the ecosystem. And so we want to be able to have those in multiple different places, have multiple different touch points with players, so they get to like have a little bit more control over their kind of browsing Discover experience. So we're trying to launch creator pages fully in client in 33, so that'll be in the end of the year. And I know that the images during the keynote were a little bit small, and so we are trying to basically blow them all up and give everyone a really good look at what the different features are going to be. So
I think the thing we're really excited about, in addition to other stuff here, is if you get a user who just loves your content and loves what you're doing, you can actually build a real relationship with them, where when you're publishing content, when you're on your socials, et cetera, as opposed to now where the content's kind of floating in a thing over here and your creator's over here, we're really trying to integrate that. So when you make consistently great content, it really is valuable to like build this following. And when you publish a new game, your fans are able to see it. And that's actually part of your testing loop, is that your fans are able to try out your awesome new content.
Yep, and just to kind of like walk through the page a little bit, we have new profile images, bio and description being added into client. That's been live on web for a little while. Same thing, we're adding socials so that we can start building that connection and have places for your community to go for discussion. We've noticed that like the My Socials device is great, but you don't always want to like direct people out of the game when they're in the game. You kind of want to keep them in there and engaged. And so this is like another place that, another touch point for those players to say, oh, I want to go check out this Discord or check out their Twitter. We're going to have featured games where you'll be able to highlight 3 or 4 different games, and then you'll have your list of sort of all islands that you've published, and then creator picks on the bottom. And so the next screenshot here is just the way that this content is going to show up in library. And so we're going to be making a couple of changes to library. We've already started some of that. We've also heard a lot of your feedback around library placement, and we're going to look into that too, kind of leaving Unreal Fest. But basically, you'll be able to see your favorited creators here. These will actually be ordered by sort of the recency that you've interacted with this content. And so actually, like if you have a player group that play your games all the time, your creator page should show up first here. New releases, these will be all the different islands that are coming out, and then underneath that, you can kind of see it at the very bottom here, is like recently updated. And so this is just an example screenshot, but this is kind of what we're thinking and what we're hoping that players start to really like lean into their library, as this is the place for me. This is kind of my content that I'm super excited about within the ecosystem.
I recently played my favorites, as well as you'll see collections down there, which I don't know if you'll talk about later.
We'll tee it up. Collections, we're going to get to it. So the next screenshot here is just within Discover. Everyone's pretty familiar with this version of Discover, but don't worry, some more to come on that. New and updated from creators that you have favorited. And then similarly, we want to try to find a way to kind of integrate different creator picks, or the picks from your favorite creators and things like that, and that can be a different row in Discover as well. The last place that creator pages are going to show up is within search. And so we want to just carve out within the search page so that you can, as a player, you can search specifically for an island or for a creator. We don't have any sort of like weird mixing of intent with when I'm searching for something. And so players will be able to, toggle between whichever one that they're looking for, and we can kind of adjust some of the weighting, and we can get a better sense of, directing players exactly where they want to go. Cool. I think that is all I have on creator pages. And so the next piece is what we're calling Discover Evolution. And so we've taken a very long, hard look at Discover. It's been over a year, I think, since we launched sort of like the home bar and some of those big changes kind of last year. And we think that there's still a lot of room for us to improve the Discover user experience. And so we've been lucky enough to work with some super, super talented UI UX designers across Epic, really, and take a big stab at like what we think the best experience for players and for creators is within Discover. And so we're super excited to be able to deliver some of this for the end of the year. And so we want to go through and sort of share it all here as a preview, and then you should see more of this kind of come November. So again, this was in the keynote, but I'll kind of step through it. There's a bunch of different changes here. As Kent has alluded to, we're definitely still leaning into personalization. We want that For You page to feel sort of curated to you as a player. It should feel contextual to the type of content that you're interested in. Underneath For You, we're adding game collections. And I should also call out that all the ordering here is subject to change. Like Discover is still going to do the same old like experimentation. We're going to figure out what rows work best for players and move things around as needed. But here's sort of what we're thinking for now. So game collections. These will be the place that you can go and kind of click into any of these different games, and then you'll be able to see the sort of full list of content. And I think we're really excited about this because this is actually going to differentiate from like the current browse experience where it's just, hey, here's a list of 100 islands sorted by CCU. Really what clicking into these does is it's going to open up an entirely new Discover surface. And that Discover surface is going to have its own rows. It's going to have its own top rated. It's going to have its own new and updated, but filtered specifically for the context that you are opting into. And we think this will be great for games. We also think that this will be great for genres. And so if I'm a player who's super into role play games, I should be able to go to the role play page and I should be able to see a full sort of Discover surface curated to roleplay content. And so there's a ton of work that goes into that. And we're constantly going to be working on improving it as we go, but we think that we can get the version of this out by the end of the year so that players can start really like diving deeper into Discover as opposed to having to scroll 40 rows down and hope they stumble upon something that they're excited about.
I think the thing we're really excited about as well with those category pages, and again, this is collections, there's also categories for different genres within Fortnite, is it allows us to be a little more efficient with some of our testing impressions. Right now, we're giving you 50,000 basically random accounts to see your stuff. If you made a role play, you don't actually need 50,000 random accounts. You need 10,000 role play players, and you're going to get even probably higher CCU, better metrics, better everything if you're actually being tested within these contextual areas where people are actually trying to go deep in your genre, which is again something we're really stoked for.
Yep, and so here's just an example of like what that role play page might look like. We're adding a new kind of top 10. We're going to mess around this as like a sort of visualization of content that we think that players will be really into. Similarly, we have like top rated underneath this, you can imagine new and updated. And then at the bottom, we still want to have that like full list of islands so that like players who really want to go deep and see all of the different content that's available within a genre, they can still do that. But we're really hopeful that players kind of dive into these pages. The other thing that we're going to be allowing players to do is actually favorite these pages. And so then, again, those same collections can show back up in their library. They'll be able to have more immediate access. Ideally, we can start sort of sorting the different rows by the things that they favorited and really bringing that to the front and giving players a little bit more control over, hey, I'm here for roleplay games, and I want to make sure that I can get to those roleplay games really quickly. And you don't need to show me like 25 rows of various content or various like combat content if I'm here just for this one thing. So the other example here would be like Fall Guys, right? And we can have different branding and images and stuff kind of associated with these to really like convey that fantasy. But it's going to follow a similar sort of structure where the different pages will probably feel similar, but like we want to be able to sort of like curate as needed. And so if we see, oh, like this specific genre, we know we want a different type of row, we can do that. This gives like Discover actually a lot more control over trying to find what rows are working for what different genres. And so maybe we want to have a most engaging within roleplay, but with Fall Guys, we want to have, you know, most social or like highest party size or whatever. And so this just gives us room for that like experimentation that I think goes a long way.
I asked if Joey could make an even more blinding version of this slide, even brighter, but so we're stuck with this.
Yeah. And so the last thing that I'll talk about here, kind of along with favoriting these different categories, is something that Kent alluded to, which is like the new and returning sort of flow. And so one of the challenges that we have on Discover is that kind of as players are coming into the ecosystem, we don't know very much about them. We don't know what they're here for. We don't know what they're excited about. And so we sort of just serve everyone the same blanket content. And so what we're doing is we're adding this sort of interstitial screen where players can say, hey, I'm here for Battle Royale, I'm here for combat, I'm here for Fall Guys or whatever. And then we can very immediately turn that around and reflect it back in their home bar, in the tops of their Discover. And so it sort of solves, it's a cold start problem, but it helps us to kind of get some forward progress on, hey, this is a platform. This is not just BR. And we don't need to show every single player BR as the first thing that they see if they tell us that actually I'm here for something totally different. And so we think this is a really good step forward. And so we're excited to also, you know, hopefully be able to ship that with kind of the end of the year when we tend to see a lot of like new players are showing up and sort of around that holiday period. So.
I think the other thing that we didn't touch on, if you go back to like the main Discover page, is, you know, we're trying to hit the player feedback that Discover can be a bit overwhelming. There's emojis in the titles, and there's ratings down there, and there's CCU, and there's all of this stuff. And so, again, we've been fortunate to work with some really great designers, but the big thesis is, can we give players all the information they need, but not completely overwhelm them while not sacrificing density, which we know is really important to our players. They don't want to scroll around forever, have giant tiles that take over everything. And so, again, like so much of Discover, you've been on this journey with us for a while now, it's a really iterative process. This is our current step towards responding to feedback, responding to creators, trying to serve players. And I think this is going to be the first of ideally almost infinite steps of trying to make this better and better.
Sweet. I think those are basically all the slides that we have.
I'll stand down here, and the folks who are in line, I can finish answering the questions, but I think we have to turn over the room. So thank you all so much.
Thank you everyone for the time.
Okay.